Welcome to the Naturally Healthy Pets Podcast. Let's get to it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Naturally Healthy Pets Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Judy Morgan. I'm really excited about today's podcast, and our topic is, why should you keep chickens? Could they be more powerful than meditation? And I'm thinking somebody else's chickens, not mine, because I am not going to meditate with my chickens because they don't like me near as much as they like my mother. But my guest today is Johannes Paul, co-founder of Omelet, which is a global leader in innovative and sustainable pet products, celebrating 20 years of bringing new meaning to chicken keeping with its state-of-the-line coops and accessories. We'll talk about those a little later on. Hans, thank you so much for agreeing to be my guest today. I'm excited to talk about this.
I am thrilled to be here and to convince you of the meditative powers of even your mother's chickens, Dr. Judy.
Yeah, they definitely love it. You know, it's funny, when you get chicks, they imprint on the first person that they really interact with. And when my mother loves baby anything, whether it's a two-legged or a four-legged, she just loves baby animals and baby children. And so every time we get a new batch of chicks, my mother is just all over, playing with the chicks and talking to them. And so I think they just instantly, it's like, Mom!
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm chopped liver.
You got to get
so
in
I
there
think that's
first.
part of it. Maybe, I don't know. All right, so I'm going to give a little background. Hans grew up on a farm in West Sussex, England, and I love this, a pet cat named Pudding and a rooster named Hen Solo.
Correct.
It's just awesome. He studied engineering at Brunel University and completed a master's in industrial design at the Royal College of Art, London. And that's where he met the co-founders of Omelet. I just love that company name. So perfect.
Thank you.
James Tuthill, Simon Nichols, and William Wyndham. And after graduating, the four chicken enthusiasts started Omelet with $5,000 in savings and a dream of transforming chickens from misunderstood farmyard animals. See, I don't understand them. To much loved family pets through the power of product design. Omelet has 20 years experience in helping people start keeping chickens. Through coops designed for backyards of all shapes and sizes, Omelet makes it possible to keep a flock of hens almost anywhere. Notice hens, not my million horrible roosters. Omelet's commitment to making chicken keeping possible for the masses runs deeper than product. With their latest campaign, Omelet is spreading the word on the mental and physical health benefits pet chickens can bring. This is so cool. So how do I make my chickens into something I want to meditate with?
Well, the beautiful thing is they already come pre-programmed like that for you, straight out of the box. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, by the way. That was very nice. I think just winding the clock back 20 years ago when we started out, we just had this, I don't know, I honestly struggle to explain it, why we just had this sort of complete passionate belief that more people needed to keep chickens because they were misunderstood, It was like a real underdog story. We were like going to kind of bring the underdog out and make it into the hero. And I grew up with chickens on a small holding, and my mom was like, one of these incredible people who seems to be able to juggle everything, 4 children, farm. It was a little bit like growing up on Noah's Ark. It was like 2 of everything. I just always loved the chickens. They were right outside the back door, and go out, feed them in the morning, collect the eggs and things. And then later in life, when I was at the Royal College of Art, and I met Jim and Simon and Will, we just started talking about chickens one day, and Jim had kept chickens as a child growing up and stuff. And he was like, yeah, they're really cool. Like, more people should keep chickens. And we started talking about why people don't. And we realized it was because they had become somehow like totally misunderstood. Like, people just really associated them with a farmyard type hobby, something you would do if you had a farm, lived in a rural area. And our thing was like, but why couldn't you do it if you lived in a suburban area or urban? Because, like, not just for the eggs, but they're such a cool pet. So we set about trying to figure out how we could change people's perceptions. And we ended up designing the first igloo, which didn't look anything like a chicken coop. When we launched it, people literally came up to us and went, well, what is it? And we would go, it's a chicken coop. And they would go, really? And we would say, yeah. And then they would say, wow, does this mean I can keep chickens? And we really realized at that point that there's almost like, there's something very sort of deep in people's DNA almost, that there's almost an instinct in some people, like an instinct to keep chickens. Like, I would love to keep chickens. They've never kept chickens before. They don't know really what's involved, but they just like, I would love to do that. And I think I don't know, like it's to do with the sounds that chickens make. It's maybe the nostalgia of it a little bit, linking it to a time which maybe people now feel was simpler, made more sense, was more community based. And I think when we talk about keeping chickens, we talk in a way which actually is so much more than just the chicken. It's about the connections that you get with other people, the connections they foster with your family. Maybe, you've got teenage kids, and there's like, often it's a bit stressful. But if you've got some chickens in the backyard, you go out, you come out with a hope, right? You're in nature, you're outside. And that also brings this other element to it where people just feel a little more literally grounded. You take your shoes off, you're walking in the grass, you're hearing the sounds of chickens. I mean, I don't know, like it just all happens. It just naturally drops your blood pressure and lowers your heart rate.
I will say my favorite time of day is first thing in the morning when we go out and do all of our barn chores and take care of the chickens and the horses and the donkeys and cats, dogs. And I listen to the chickens in the coop. We have about 30 chickens right now, and a few roosters are part of that mix.
Yeah.
And they're so funny because my mother normally is in charge of taking care of the chickens, and she hasn't been able to get out to the barn recently. And the chickens sound exactly like my mother. I listen to them in the coop while I'm cleaning the horse stalls.
Yeah.
And it sounds just like my mother is in there talking to them because she has this high pitched sort of baby talk that when she talks to the chickens.
Yeah.
And I literally can't tell the chicken voices from my mother's voice. So I feel like my mother's out there in the barn with me every morning because I've got all, and I'm like, some mornings those chickens are so loud and it's like everybody around the water cooler gossiping.
Yeah, definitely. Like, what are they chatting about? Like, what went on that night? Like, what was going on in that chicken coop?
I don't know, but now we've got the roosters, and I will say, like, we started with chickens in 2016.
Yeah.
And we lived, like you said, in a suburban area. We were actually in town, but we had 2 acres. We were in town. We weren't allowed to have any farm animals, but we had 2 miniature horses and we got 6 chickens.
Well, they don't count.
So it was sort of, yeah, exactly. It was sort of one of those don't ask, don't tell. And our neighbors were like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So it's just some very big dogs and some funny looking cats.
Exactly. So nobody complained and it was fine. And the chickens were able to free range on our 2 acres. And interestingly, the miniature horses were their protectors. Like, as long as the horses were out with them, we didn't have a predator problem.
Yeah.
We did have a predator problem one day when I didn't put the horses out with them.
Really?
So it's really interesting because the miniature horses don't ward off anything. They're just a bigger presence.
Yeah.
So what I discovered was as long as the chickens are out there with them, it's okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, free ranging was it. And I was one of those people. I knew nothing. I mean, I had to take a chicken class in vet school, but chicken class in vet school is flock management. It's not single bird or so. If a bird dies, how do you or if your birds get sick, how do you decide what that is? Well, in flock medicine, you kill a few, do a necropsy, do some cultures. When you have a flock of 6, you don't kill a few.
You're not going to do that. No.
To figure out what's going on. Yeah. So I got 6 chickens. I had no idea what to do with them, and we literally winged it, no pun intended. We've actually been really lucky through the years with our chickens. We had an outbreak of coccidia once.
I think you're just a fast learner.
I don't know. I think we're just lucky. But I will tell you that my grandfather had a pet rooster. twice. These roosters would just wander into their yard. They lived in town, and a rooster would show up. And so he had a huge Rhode Island red named Clarence.
Wow.
And he brought it in the house, and they had a dirt floor basement, real old house. And the rooster roosted in the basement overnight. And then every morning, Clarence would come out and follow my grandfather around all day.
Really?
He had a furniture store, and the rooster followed him around, walked to the post office with him every day. He taught it to crow on command. It learned a whole bunch of tricks.
Wow.
And when that rooster met its demise, another one walked into his yard, and they named that one Clarence too.
That is so cool. I take issue with this phrase, like man's best friend, and everybody automatically assumes it's a dog. Why is it always a dog? I think what you've just explained there is like it can just as easily be a chicken. And I think this is what's so. I think possibly because people's expectations of how chickens can be as pets is really quite low, that they are so surprised when they get them and they realize what characters they have, and that you can even train them. And they are so much more similar than like other pets that people have, like cats and dogs, in terms of their capabilities and the warmth and the companionship that you get from the pet. That's really something that's misunderstood with chickens, because people just haven't had that direct contact with them.
I would agree. I mean, I have a great picture of my mom where she and my husband and I were playing Scrabble on our back patio, and my mother is holding one of the hens in her arms as she's playing Scrabble, and the chicken is just, sort of nestled in there, like happy as can be.
Yeah.
And she's holding this chicken just like you would hold a cat or a dog, just as part of her bonding with her chickens.
Yeah.
So I think part of my problem, I think, is these chickens are really bonded to my mother, and I am not her, and they're not really very happy with me. They're they're not mean, but they're just like me.
You see the relationship that your mother and the chickens have, and you're like, why are we not like that?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and the roosters, we have two little silky roosters who are very friendly. We have a third silky rooster that I had to send to live at my daughter's house because that one was attacking my mother.
Right. Okay, so it's not 100% success rate. But it does sound like your mother is a real chicken whisperer. Like she's really got a connection there.
We actually call her that. She's pretty funny. But she just likes all animals. Yeah. So if somebody wanted to have a little backyard coop and they lived, thank you. And they lived in a suburban area.
Right.
We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want an answer on how many chickens should people start with, or what's a good number to have in your backyard. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.
Do you raise chickens? Are they getting all the nutrition that they need? We recommend all natural blended supplements from the poultry store. To keep your chickens happy and healthy, Naturally Healthy Pets is offering 10% off any poultry store products found on naturallyhealthypets.com. Just use code podcast44 at checkout. You're listening to another informative Naturally Healthy Pets podcast episode because you want your pets to live long and healthy lives. Here's an exclusive offer to our horse people who purchase our course, Horse Longevity, 6 Steps to Improve Longevity in Your Horse with Dr. Joyce Harmon. Save 15% using the code podcast44 when purchasing on drjudyu.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Naturally Healthy Pets podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Judy Morgan. My guest today, Hans Paul, co-founder of Omelet, is explaining to us what wonderful pets chickens can be, and they really can. And I've seen it with my grandfather. I've seen it with my mother. I'm not as bonded to the chickens. But, I had an Amazon parrot. I had a cockatoo. I had lovebirds, finches. I've had a lot of birds over the years, and birds are really interesting. They kind of bond to one person. Like my Amazon loved me. Nobody else could get near him. So that, it may be very similar with the chickens. But if somebody wanted to get started with chickens in their backyard, they could be like me and just say, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to go down to the farm store, buy some chickens and put them in the yard. What would you recommend as a starting point? How many chickens is a good number to start with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, which we get asked a lot, because I think we've become very well known for helping people get started with keeping pet chickens. So I guess the first thing to say is chickens are a flock animal. So they do like to have at least one other chicken in that flock. So I would always say, like, as an absolute minimum, 2 chickens. But mostly, I think people, when they've got limited space, they will start with 3, maybe 4 chickens, and that's like a really good number. So if you have a small yard, small garden, maybe a suburban area or even an urban area, then 2, 3, 4 chickens, great number. You get the smaller bantam breeds, which are like perfect for a small garden. These chickens are well, how big? Like roughly the size of a football, I guess. So really quite small, and very very easy to look after in a back garden. The eggs will be a bit smaller. So if your main goal is to provide eggs for your family, then you want to get the sort of the larger breeds. You mentioned Rhode Island Reds. That's the absolute classic egg-laying chicken. But there are a lot of really great egg-laying chickens. And then one chicken can lay 6 eggs a week. So, you can see very quickly you can actually produce a lot of eggs. If you have 3 chickens, like 6 eggs a week, you're going to be getting 18 eggs a week. So for a lot of families, you don't need a lot of chickens to be able to provide all your eggs for you. So I would normally recommend start out with a small flock, and then build up from there, because I tell you something that's very real. Chickens are addictive, and they should come with a bit of a warning, because once you start keeping them, you'll want to get more. And another thing that people that you haven't sort of discovered this world of chickens yet don't realize is just how incredible the breed selection is now. So you can go on there's some really great hatcheries, McMurray Hatchery, Maya Hatchery, Cackle Hatchery, all these great generational businesses where they've been breeding really incredible lines of chickens. And you can get birds that you wouldn't even realize they're a chicken. Like, they just look exotic. You're talking about parrot level exotic here. So you can really amaze your friends with like your selection of breeds that you would have in your back garden. To the point that genuinely people would say like, wow, what is that? And you would go, it's a chicken. And they go, is it? So yeah, it's a very cool hobby to get into, but it is a bit addictive.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of different breeds. We've gone to a couple of those specialty hatcheries where we could pick out different little peeps. And the cool thing about doing that is we have chickens of all different sizes and different colors, so they're really pretty. But we also get eggs of all different colors.
Yeah, that's true.
We have green eggs, blue eggs, purple eggs, light tan, dark brown, and we finally got some white ones.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really cool when I give away a dozen eggs. It's like opening it up and it's like, oh, an Easter egg hunt. You don't even have to dye the eggs.
Yeah, I mean, it's genuinely amazing, isn't it? Like, the colors of the eggs are just beautiful. And I mean, they all taste the same, which is sometimes people wonder like, oh, do the chocolate brown ones taste a bit chocolatey? Sorry guys, they don't. Like, it's just, they all taste the same. And the quality of the egg is nothing to do with the breed of the chicken. It's really 100% to do with the welfare of that chicken, or the well-being, and how you feed that chicken, and its its environment. So keeping them in your backyard means that you can really be sure of the quality of the eggs. You know exactly what they've been eating, and the freshness obviously is unparalleled. You cannot buy an egg that fresh. So you can go out in the morning, you can pick some eggs from your chicken coop, you can bring them back in, you can cook them. Like, I like to poach the eggs, because I don't know, that for me, you just get that real sort of, you see how fresh they are, and they just taste fantastic.
Yeah, it's such a huge difference, and it's interesting because now that we have almost 30 chickens, we get a lot of eggs. And so I bring eggs to the office and give them to our employees. And one of our employees was helping us out at the farm, and I handed him a dozen eggs, and he said, oh, thank goodness, because I had to get store-bought eggs last week. I ran out of your eggs. And he said, I was so sick. They upset my stomach so badly. I can't eat store-bought eggs anymore. I've gotten so used to these farm fresh eggs, they are totally different. If you take a farm fresh egg that you just got out of your backyard that was just laid, and you crack that next to a store-bought egg, the color and size of the yolks, the stiffness of the white, I mean, it is totally different. And one of the things that people don't understand is storage of the eggs. We do not refrigerate our eggs. We do not wash our eggs. Because once you wash them, you actually take that protective coating off the shell. And that's part of the problem with grocery store eggs and why they don't last near as long, because they've been washed and then they have to be refrigerated. Whereas our farm fresh eggs, we can leave them sitting on the counter for 60 days. They never last that long because they get eaten much more quickly, or we give them away to somebody else to eat them. But it is it is amazing the difference.
Just thinking about like gifting the eggs, just picking up on what you were saying there. I think this is like, it's another thing where I was mentioning about the community aspect of chicken keeping, and it's like, you know, they're very different from other pets. There's not much that I can think of that you could gift that your dog produces or your cat produces. Like, I don't think anyone would appreciate one of those gifts. But eggs from your chickens, you know, where you take them around to a neighbor or a friend, or like you bring them into work. Like, it's such a great thing to do, and it's a real conversation starter, and it just lets people into your world a little bit, and just brings people together. And I think, I've heard many stories of people who have developed friendships and unexpected sort of connections. Like a lady was saying to me that day, she goes to a farmer's market. She always goes to the bee guy, and she buys honey from this guy. And she mentioned to him that she just got egg chickens and she was getting her first eggs. And he was like, "Oh, you know, if you bring me some, I'll trade you. I'll trade you some honey for the."
There you go.
And she was like, so cool. And I think it's that kind of thing that, this sort of, we talk about meditative power of the chicken. It's more like this sort of, this whole kind of world that they kind of open up in terms of, I don't know. Another way we talk about it is almost like chicken therapy. You know, they're just good for you.
True. Well, another positive that happens at our house is all of our kitchen scraps go to the chickens. Yeah. So like this morning, my husband cut up a watermelon. Well, the chickens go crazy for the watermelon rind. And, normally that would go in the trash, or, we don't even compost because we don't have any chicken or kitchen waste left over, because everything goes to the chickens. But we pretty much eat all fresh organic fruits and vegetables. So anything that's left over that's going to the chickens, they're still getting fresh organic food.
It's also cool.
And we actually just started a hydroponic garden because I want fresh greens for us and for the chickens.
That sounds amazing. The other thing I was going to say, I don't know if you probably don't eat these yourself, but the chickens definitely do, is like they're very good at controlling sort of pests and bugs like ticks, for example, in your garden. So they will do a great sort of natural job of keeping pests and definitely things like ticks and other sort of mites and things in the garden down as well. That's what they love to do.
Yeah, we always think about guinea hens for that, but regular chickens are going to take care of that as well. So before we run out of time, I want to talk about your products at Omelet. So obviously you're making coops. From how many chickens to how many chickens? Like, how big do your coops go?
So we have 4 coops in the range at the moment. The egg go and the egg go up are our sort of starter sizes for up to 4 chickens. And then we go to the egg cube, which is for 6. And then the biggest one, the egg pro, which is for 10 large chickens. So, it's when you've got 10 chickens, that's a pretty decent sized flock. And that's definitely manageable still in a sort of a regular backyard. Like, I keep, I think we've got 12 chickens at the moment. We've got a mixture, so bantams and larger breeds. So if you have bantams, you can have actually 15 in our largest chicken coop. And that's it. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And how big a footprint is that coop for that many chickens?
So the actual coop would be, it's around 6 feet wide and about 3 feet deep. And then you need to decide what kind of run you want with it. So, like when you've gone in your coop at night and you see how they sleep, they're all huddling up together. And so in our largest Pro, they have 3 nest boxes in there, and then you have the roosting area where they sleep. The main thing I would say to people is really think about the outside space. Because the outside space is where the chickens are active during the day and foraging. Like they won't really be in the coop during the day very much at all. You go in there to lay an egg.
Right.
Maybe if the weather's really bad, they would spend a bit more time in there. But the main thing is to think about how do you want to keep them outside. And a lot of people will create what we call a walk-in run. So a large sort of totally enclosed area, which will keep out hawks, raccoons, all those kind of annoying predators, coyotes, foxes, all sorts of things. And then your chickens can be out during the day foraging, doing their thing, and you don't need to worry about them.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to have to get them a protector. So either some sort of a farm dog that would be a good protector. And actually, we have donkeys, and donkeys are very, very good protectors. The only time we ever had a fox get any of our chickens, it was absolutely pouring rain, and the donkeys hate rain, so they went inside the barn, and the fox took advantage of the donkeys kind of being in hiding and came up and got a chicken. So it is a really good. Now our chickens are in an outdoor, totally enclosed wire where nobody can get to them.
I think in the end it's the right way to do it, because then you don't need to worry about them. And all of ours have got like a special anti-tunnel skirt to stop like predators like foxes digging in. And they're tried and tested. We've been doing this for 20 years. So we've kind of figured out all of these things and really solved a lot of these issues for people.
So these guys have a ton of information about chickens and keeping flocks and getting started on their website. And let's see, Omelet USA is their Instagram, their Facebook, and X. And the website is www.omelet.us, which is so cool. And they've got all kinds of offers on there as well. You can get 10% off site-wide using the code Dr. Judy. So this is a great chance to go get some amazing products with a discount and also learn a lot about chickens. And they give you free shipping if you're within the continental US. So if you spend over $100, so that is very cool as well. So I know you sell the coops and chicken products. Do you sell feed, supplements, anything like that as well?
No, not so much. They were really about the kind of the hardware for keeping like automatic door openers and coops and runs and fencing supplies and things like that. Feeders, drinkers.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. So we have a big barn, and so we actually had the coop built in as part of the barn. But if you don't have that and you want something that's freestanding and obviously well-researched and something your chickens are going to love, check out Omelet. I'm going to go check it out. I think this is very cool. Thank you so much for your time today, Hans. I really, really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Dr. Judy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to another great Naturally Healthy Pets episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for some helpful links. And if you enjoy the show, please be sure to follow and listen for free on your favorite podcast app. We value your feedback and would love to hear from you on how we're doing. Visit drjudymorgan.com for healthy product recommendations, comprehensive courses, upcoming events, and other fantastic resources. Until next time, keep giving your pet the vibrant life they deserve.
The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform. It is no substitute for professional care by a veterinarian, licensed nutritionist, or other qualified professional. You're encouraged to do your own research and should not rely on this information as professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Dr. Judy and her guests express their own views, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets neither endorses or opposes any particular view discussed here.